Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm going to piggyback on Yuan's comment on decentralizing human agency at a global scale and piggyback on the public goods funding and what data can do for it. My name is Rohit. I'm an analyst at Open Source Observer. And let me spend 30 seconds on talking why this is important. We all know Web3 ecosystem is growing. If some of us who watch the charts that are spiking these days, it's likely there's going to be more money coming into public goods funding, creating more digital public goods. In fact, we are now rivaling the economies of certain small countries if you compare the amount of money that's coming in and fund public goods. What that also means now is just like how the economists look at different data and make decisions on what kind of financial investments give what kind of economic returns, we as an ecosystem need to get smarter and figure out who our winners are. And we are not alone. There's a lot of inspiration to take, especially from the sports industry. And I can imagine sometime next year, some grant review committee is using data just like how Moneyball used to figure out where do they need to put the money, who their winners are. So in the next couple of minutes, I'm going to do a very fast lightning show of some of the data-led decisions that are typically taken day-in-the-life scenarios of grant managers, funders, and I'll leave you with references to do some of this hacking on your own. All the charts that you will see in this talk, all the data behind it, all the code is all open source. So if you're interested, happy to meet after and give pointers on how to get started on hacking this together. With each of these illustrations, I'll talk about what the data is about. I'll talk what the inference is, what's the story behind the data, and what do we do about it. The first example is from quadratic funding. As a lot of you know, quadratic funding brings together projects of different sizes all across the spectrum, and the community votes to decide how the matching pool gets allocated. Now, one of the interesting things that happens in quadratic funding is you have projects that are potentially like side projects, people who are working part-time at one end of the spectrum, and at the other end of the spectrum, you have OG projects with double-digit active developers, great builder reputation, building some amazing work. And if you're running a quadratic funding round yourself and you want to see what makes up your portfolio, you can use coding metrics to start to profile some of your grantees. So the data that has gone behind it includes all the GitHub repository information, number of active developers, number of commits, the kind of PRs are happening, comments, number of repositories. And when you spread it across, you get a nice set of clusters. On the top left are projects that are more mature, have highly active developers. On the right, you have grantees that are barely getting started. May they have small part-time teams that are working towards it. And as a grant operator, you can start to look at how my chart is trending. Who are my fast risers who are moving on the right? What kind of support they need? Which are the grants that are not progressing at all over time, and what kind of intervention they may need? And this is just the beginning. You can then stamp on it some of the on-chain data. So what's happening in this graph is you have developer activity on the y-axis. The higher you are, the more active you are as a project. But on the x-axis, you have number of on-chain transactions. And now you can start to see not only who are some of my most active teams, but at the same time, is that GitHub activity translating into real-world action on-chain? And lastly, and this is my favorite, very soon we're going to have modules that act like a command center for grants team, where they can go on a near real-time basis, start to track performance on how their grantees are doing. This particular module was deployed a couple of months back for Gitcoin grants number 22. Essentially what it allows for anybody, any donor in quadratic funding, is to go choose a set of metrics, choose a set of weights that they care about, apply some filters, and start to slice and dice data and to look at grantees based on priorities that they care about. And now you can do similar experiences for badge holders, for stakeholders, for ecosystems to then start to decide how do they want to drive their capital allocation. So the last thing I'll say is the time to do this is really now. There's no time to wait. The QR code here will give you access to all the data, the infrastructure behind it to run similar kind of analysis. It takes a village. We're going to need an entire set of communities to start thinking around what metrics matter. We're going to need more data standards, and most importantly, we're going to need impact data scientists, hopefully from this crowd as well, to do some kind of similar kind of hacking and make this a reality for data-led public goods funding. That's all about it. Thanks.